Hey guys, what's up? My name is Alexandria and I live full-time in this 2020 Ford Transit van with my dog Tara, and today I'm going to be sharing all of the details, the nitty-gritty about what I spent during my 6th month on the road. So the way that I've set this up is to look at each area categorically, so like insurance, food, gas, etc., and then compare it back to June, and at the end we'll tackle totals and what I wish that I would have done differently and what I'm working on now. So first we're going to focus on my fixed costs. These are bills that I have to pay every month. Yes, I have bills even though I don't have rent or utility payments. And then we'll go ahead and jump into the miscellaneous or the fluctuating spending. So my first payment and also my largest fixed bill is my van payment. I did buy a new van, not a used one. I wanted the warranty, and at the time the market was just so high that it actually made more sense for me to spend, $2,000 or $3,000 more and get a new van as opposed to buying a used van, getting something with 40 or 50,000 miles, if not more, and still spending upwards of $35,000. With that being said, my van payment is $618, and that was the same in June and will be the same unless I refinance for the foreseeable future. The only other bill that I have that's attached to the van is my van insurance. I have not yet insured this as an RV, which I'm working on, and if you guys want to see how that process goes, let me know in the comments down below, and I'm happy to document the process because I feel like it's very confusing. But when I do that, I will have lower payments as well as lower insurance rates. But for now, my insurance stands at $213 a month. While we're talking about insurance, if you didn't know already, I do have a dog. She's a very young, cute golden retriever puppy, and I pay for pet insurance as well, and that currently runs me through a bundle with my car insurance at $51.71. Now, my only other major fixed payment right now is my phone and internet bill, and those two are bundled. So I have my phone, obviously, with a hotspot on it, as well as an external hotspot. Both of those are from Verizon, and I got a super good deal because I was grandfathered in from a past plan that I had with them. And so that allows for obviously unlimited texting, calling, all of that good stuff. And then I also have an additional 150 gigabytes of data that I can use to work my 9 to 5, post YouTube videos, check iOverlander, and watch Netflix. This has gone up $10 since June, where I was paying $115, but that just came down to wanting more internet and not having to worry so much about running out of data when I was in the middle of a work meeting. All right, now let's get to some of the smaller costs. So my subscriptions are another area that I spend in every month. One is Planet Fitness. I did not have that back in June, but it has been a game changer. Being able to go in and take a hot shower, especially during winter van life, has been incredible. So $23 well spent. And then finally, I spent $61.50 on my subscriptions. Now, subscriptions for me include things like my Spotify, which well worth the $10 I spend on that, and that also has Hulu for when I want to watch TV. I have some subscriptions for YouTube, like where I get my music from, and then my Adobe Suite products as well. And that $61.50 is being compared to $40 back in June, and that's just because of a couple additions that I made for my business, like my Google Suite platform. Okay, now that we have my fixed spending out of the way, let's talk about the spending every month that fluctuates. I'll start with the two biggest bills, my gas and my groceries. So starting with gas, I spent a staggering $666.25 this past month. I took a look and I actually ended up spending $350 just to leave and re-enter my state, because gas right now here is like $5 to $6, especially in Southern California. So not super stoked with that, especially because I only drove about 1,500 miles. So that amount of gas is just staggering, especially when you compare it to the $665 I spent in June to cover almost twice the distance. And in the future, I would definitely like to get that down, and I'm hoping to budget around $300 or $400 maximum. So that's if I'm driving a ton. I'm really hoping to slow down with my travel and not be rushing around so much, which I feel like I say every month, but that's definitely a goal in the future, and it'll help me knock down one of my biggest areas of spending. Something that's a little bit more in my control though, which I should probably try working on first, are my grocery bills. So I won't say that I was shocked, but I was pretty disappointed to see that for groceries, I ended up spending $597 this month. I have said it before, and I will say it again, that most of my groceries are purchased in more resort-like towns, and so I'm traveling to Moab and Sedona and San Diego, places where cost of living is a lot higher than just being out in the desert and kind of getting your stuff at smaller towns, and most of my shopping is at Walmart. But all that being said, I still spent way more than I wanted to on groceries. And so I really want to focus on this in the coming months and work on getting that grocery bill down to maybe even $200, maybe $300 if I'm hosting. All that to say, even though I'm not super stoked on my grocery bill for the past month, I did save a little bit of money in comparison to June, where I spent $677. So we're making progress in the right direction, but I'm still not really happy with where that number is. An area that I did make a lot of improvement on though was eating out. Back in June, I was eating out quite a lot. I had a couple of birthday parties and birthdays where I was treating somebody, and I ended up spending almost $400 eating out in June. Compare that to this past month where I spent $117, and I am stoked. While I could try to cut eating out entirely, I definitely don't want to budget so strictly or budget in this area so strictly, because I think it is important to be able to go out and try the food in the areas that you're traveling to, and it is nice every once in a while to go out with a friend and have a nice meal. So I don't want to cut this out, and I think if anything with my food budget, I will be cutting down on groceries before I try to make any major changes to my eating out budget, because comparatively, it really doesn't touch where my groceries are at. Moving on to a category that did not even exist last June is pet miscellaneous. So this is everything that I spent on Tara last month. As you guys have heard, she has been having some issues with GI distress, and so we were in and out of the vet a lot, which is where much of this bill came from. But $20 of that was also getting her groomed, getting her nails trimmed, etc. Things that I just have not been comfortable doing myself. And so there was a small amount of money that came out there, but she did rack up over $350 in vet bills, all of which contributed to the $484 that I spent on my puppy. So definitely not an area that I want to cut back in necessarily. I'm gonna spend whatever money I have to spend on her to make sure that she's healthy, within reason of course. And recently her spending has gone up a little bit because she's on a very specialty diet, because she's allergic to chicken, we found out, which if you have a pet, you know that chicken is in all of their food. So I have been home cooking her meals, and that also came out of this budget. I did not put that in my own personal budget, but this includes foods, training treats, that small grooming bill that she had, as well as that $350 emergency bill. Obviously, I won't be spending $350 a month on vet bills, hopefully, but things like food and toys and training treats are all just going to be a part of my budget from here on out, and I'm going to plan for it, unlike in June when I didn't have any spending related to pets. All right, we're getting down to the final numbers here, and now I'm going to talk about my miscellaneous spending. So the first category that I cut back unintentionally in was laundry. This past month I spent $16, and back in June I spent $25. Not that big of a difference, those numbers aren't that big. I'm not really that concerned about it. The only bummer here is that I had to get $16 worth of quarters. And finally, let's talk about my true miscellaneous spending. So these are just odds and ends, little charges on my card that I didn't really plan for, but I don't think you ever really can. Parking fees, like paying $2 to validate my parking while I went into a store or went for a walk. I paid for parking at trailheads, things like that. And in addition to that, I also put $80 towards a ski pass. I'm a big skier and snowboarder, and so that comes out of my bank account every month just to account for those fees in the winter. Surprisingly though, this category actually had the biggest change from June. I spent $1,209 back in June on miscellaneous spending. But hold on, I can explain. If you'll remember, I went on a last-minute spontaneous backpacking trip up in Idaho, and I had to buy a ton of gear for that. I didn't have any of my backpacking gear, nor did I have a finished van at that time, and so I had to go out, and I did buy secondhand, but it still adds up, as well as my brother's birthday present back in June. So definitely worthwhile spending, but it was something that I had mentioned in my last video that I did not want to repeat in the future. And now that I have all of my gear with me, I really have everything that I think I could ever need, at least for now. I didn't spend nearly the money on outdoor gear. So in total, how much did I spend this past month? In total, I spent $3,118 this past month, month 6 in the van, as compared to $4,069 last June, my first month in the van. Now again, while that number is not exactly where I want it to be, I was really happy to see that it did go down, and that's including all the new money that I was spending to pay for Tara's bills. Now the reason that I wanted to compare the two is because I think with anything, you learn as you go. Sorry for the angle adjustment there, Tara had to get out of the van. The reason that reason I wanted to compare these 2 months is because, like with anything, you learn as you go, you get better as you go. And so I knew that last month I spent way more money than I needed to or wanted to in 1 month, in my first month on the road. And if I would have continued on the path that I was going in June, I would have no money in savings. Everything would just be going right to my card or right to my purchases, and I don't love living paycheck to paycheck. Now, I'm not saying that my financial circumstances are drastically different, but I am proud to say that I was able to save some money. I have a much nicer emergency fund now, and I'm very, securely and confidently paying off my debt every single month. And so I am much happier with where I am now as compared to in June, and I think it should only improve from here. This week, I'm finishing up time in California before heading east to Colorado, where I will be able to put these new goals into action and start saving even more money than I already am. So if you guys have any questions or comments about my finances, about my journey, or questions about my budget breakdown, let's continue the conversation in the comments down below. Be happy to chat more with you guys down there and maybe answer your further questions in a Q&A video coming up soon. As always, thank you guys so much for being here and for spending a part of your day with me. I really appreciate this community that we're building and can't wait to see you guys next week. Bye.